curiosity, if you could raise your hand if you already know theory U. We just want to get a sense.
Say again? What means no?
Do you already know theory U? Yes, I already know theory U. Okay, hands down. I have never heard of theory U. Great, I'm teaching these guys. Never heard of theory U.
Try, for those who have some experience with it, you can try to go with beginner's mind. Here's something to do from a different angle. That would be great.
And if you're an expert in it, you teach this all the time, you work for the Presencing Institute, you've done the ULab online course every time it's been offered.
Don't give us any shit.
Keep your mouth shut. And volunteer to sign up to offer a knowledge expedition tomorrow, because I'm taking that sign up. So if that is true, we would love for you to teach a deeper version of this, because that's an incredibly long piece of research, and we've got just like 10 minutes to teach you this. So that would be beautiful. Our plan today is actually just to give you a very brief overview of what theory U is, and then tell you some stories of how we use it. Phil and I discovered pretty quickly, the first day we were here, that this is a foundational pattern for every piece of work we do, whether it's I'm planning a meeting, whether it's I'm doing my own meditation, whether it's I'm doing a multi-sector change process for a year and a half. This is the pattern that we design with and that we think about to help the shift happen. So it's really foundational to us. I've been kind of chuckling at myself. I use it all the time. I'm not sure I've ever taught it before, so this is kind of fun. And so Phil's going to fill in. He's studying with Otto Scharmer.
I got your back.
Yeah, I know you do. Phil studies with Otto Scharmer, who's the originator of this theory. It began years before with a book written by a number of friends, mates in this work, and it's called Presence. So that's a lovely storybook to tell you how this has begun to come about. That I love. So when I think of theory U, what I imagine is a pathway. Imagine a pathway that helps us to move from all of the sort of patterns and assumptions and things we believe to be true, because if we look into our past all the way up until this moment, that's what we know. That's where we draw our information from. And I see theory U as a pathway to help us move from that knowing down into kind of beginning to consider what else might be, to move out of holding tightly to those patterns and assumptions, letting go, into this, what we call the bottom of the U. It's called the presencing space, becoming present to what is. And then rising up into letting something new come, letting something new arise that we can then kind of test and see, ooh, is this real? And prototype and then move it into actual performance. So it's a pathway that we follow, but there's a certain stance to consider. How do we actually go down the U and into this space? What are all of these practices to take you through the process? So one of the things that, by definition, this is a presencing pattern. And when I think about the way Otto Scharmer describes letting go of what has been to see what's ready to come, what is emerging in the future, you have to actually suspend, like, oh really, I can see into the future? Am I clairvoyant? I can see that way? And actually you can, but that sounds a little odd, right? So there's some practices, not to most of us. My mates are here. So one of the ways that I have described this before is just as you've come and gone from the rotunda these days, you've noticed all those beautiful flowers popping in the spring, purple ones and yellow ones popping up everywhere. But if you look out here right now, just under the surface, there are seeds everywhere. send you out there and you couldn't touch them or smell them or taste them, or none of your five senses would tell you where they are or when they're going to pop, but you know they're there. And you know the life force in them is ready to just crack open. And it might be tomorrow. And the same thing I find true in us. But in order to do that, that kind of quiet, dormant, under the ground, invisible, you have to go under there to find that place in yourself. And so the pathways of tapping into that begin with observing what is already true. So we begin with what we already know. If we're working with a process to change a system, maybe it's the organization you work in, maybe it's your team, of small teams like Bill talked about this morning. The first thing we need to really do is get to know what is this thing? What is the reality of this system? And so we find out as much as we can. Very scientific process, actually. Observe, get all the data that you can. Bring it into your awareness, either through stories, so that all of the perspectives of the story can be seen by the collective. And in that space, then, to go a little deeper into allowing some of that to fall away. So you know the reality, you know something needs to shift, you're not sure what, but you wouldn't be together if there wasn't already some movement under the ground with that seed that wanted it to change. So stepping into the space of kind of, well, let's just suspend all of this. Doesn't make it less true, but we don't need to hold on to it, it's still here. Suspend that. And consider what might happen if we sense a little deeper into what wants to emerge. We sense a little deeper into that quietness. So the first thing that happens in our heads, and this is true for humans, not just those in this room, we have these little enemies in our heads. The voice of judgment will pop up. As we begin to listen to these stories, we judge them. We find ways to say, oh, but that's not true. Or, we have the voice of cynicism that says, well, I'll believe it when I see it. We have the voice of fear that doesn't really want to change. And so there's an act here about suspending all of those voices and being able to kind of just set them aside. They'll be there later. Hopefully you don't need them again. To be in a place where nothing is really disturbing that quiet sound of that seed under the ground. Right? There's no noise. There's no nothing to distract you from sensing into what wants to rise. So in this space we call the bottom of the U, if you were just in a conversation with one other person or yourself or a small group, it can have a similar feel of like meditation. Very, very quiet space. It's not me staring at Bill. There's something in the middle. There's something we're co-sensing together. And as we begin to kind of let something come, we have to let go of what was in order for something new to come. You have to make space for that. So things begin to rise, we begin to notice what's coming up. And we begin to put words on that and to speak it and share it with one another or with your journal. And if you're doing this in a collective, it can be really interesting because it can be actually shocking because very often you'll all see the same thing without having had the conversation about what's rising, regardless of how big the group is. But people have to be willing to go there. So as we begin to see what's rising, we can start to crystallize some ideas, maybe a new intention, a new vision, what might become. And it tends to be a number of them because remember we're still in the complex domain. So we don't know exactly what's going to happen. We don't know exactly which way the pigeon's going to fly. So we're going to maybe try a number of different little prototypes to see what of this new wants to actually grow. So as we set off some new prototypes, one of them probably is going to move ahead quickly because that's where that energy actually was. And you can very quickly shut down the other ones and put all the resources into that prototype and move up to the top of the U into actually a performing new system, which was found collectively, so it has already a new culture and a new energy to move forward. It's let go of the old. I'm just gonna invite you to add bits and pieces to this, Phil.
Actually, I'll probably do that as I tell the story.
Okay. When we think about this as a conversational process, we're gonna do a little practice of some deep listening to go into this space in pairs a little bit later on. We also use it as a design pattern. So if our landscape flow is up here, I can point to the places where we're going through the U. Where we begin, but if you arrive into a space, you're doing a meeting, you're doing a workshop, you're doing training. And there's a necessity for people to kind of download everything they've brought with them. Like you need to kind of empty out and make sure that that's all cleared before you can start to sense into what really wants to happen. So as you think about process design, how do I plan my next meeting or my next event? It's actually really important to allow people to arrive and bring their stuff, whatever alive for them, and have some voice and unload all of that. And then to find these questions, as we did in World Cafe, that kind of bring together so we become one collective body. Okay? And then once we're in that collective space, we might move into some more personal stories of what we brought with us, which is what you've just done in the trios. Right? So it goes a little deeper down this. You're really suspending your judgment. You're listening to two other people. And then we sent you out on solo, which some of you did, and some of you took a break, which is totally wonderful. But some of you, if you've gone out on solo, especially if you've gone out on the land in nature, you can arrive at this place of presence where things fall away. And often the land is what opens up that magic, just like it does with the sea. It does in us as well, because we're all part of the same interconnected life system. So presencing happens in your own field and in the collective field. But in that collective field, everyone has to also be in their own system. Coming back up this can be the most interesting part, because what's coming out of here is not something anybody came in the room thinking about. It's all new. It's all, if you've really gotten into this space, everything that comes out is new. And it allows that shift to happen. Our common pattern in organizations is everyone comes to the meeting, you download all of your thoughts and your opinions and your plans. You might go down to here, but usually you leap right across the U into your next action. And there's a huge danger in just leaping across the U, because you just get more of the same you already had. There's nothing new that can possibly happen, because all of those patterns entrained in our minds that we use to build the systems we're in. Remember Phil's talk earlier, that we are living systems, and we've constructed these systems that we're in. That's a pattern that's so deep in our psyche, we think we're making change by shifting something, but we're actually just kind of moving the deck chairs around. We're not really making the change. So there's a danger to just go through all the stress that feels like change. It's really just busyness. It feels like change, but it isn't. When you could go through this process and get real change on the other side. And it's a little scarier because it's a little deeper dive. But in the end, you're going to get something new, and you're going to get probably less stressful kind of change, because everyone is on board with it. It's not something you need to go get buy-in for, right? Because everyone has found it and lifted it together. So within using this both as a process to take people through, with deep levels of listening that we'll teach in a little while, and as a design pattern, we're just going to share some stories of how we've used this in our work with clients. And turn this kind of, I don't know what to call it, philosophical pattern into something that actually lands on the ground and helps create change. I'm going to invite Phil to share